Just had a Greek yogurt pre-walk snack. I'm going to be playing Pokemon Go. Hello, baby. This is an open letter to the current Ren and Stimpy community. I wouldn't use another X account for this, as I respect, Elon Musk's new plan for the website, and also wouldn't accomplish much, so I'm just going to make a YouTube video. But there is there's a few things that I really care about their behavior on Twitter, which is the pathetic cowardice. They just wandered away, saying nothing. Maybe after following me, maybe not. I knew I did some weird things, made some pointless posts, but they should have been able to pick up on the nonverbal communication, because it was pretty clear evidence that I was not only living a messed up life, that I had been for quite some time. Let's see. Very few followers. Very few, relational interactions. Not really, any sort of ongoing projects and all that to which I refer. There's a lot of things they should have picked up on, but they didn't, out of the definite purpose of listening to mainstream culture. Of course, people besides me did not have much to say about the abstract nature of their obligations. They pretended it was all, personal, sociable. It's all about, watching those cartoons and stuff, but really it's not. Hey, kitty. There's some other things too, like how they obviously recognize me, but they try to avoid mentioning this. After I made my spumdonor article, they finally let out a few things. He's not good enough for you. Spumdonor's not good enough for you. Yeah, that's the sort of thing people would talk about at the end of my teenage years. What was good enough for me? Why exactly did they care so much? I was literally 18 years old. Why? I'll get to that later. There's other things notable about the whole spumdonor sector of the animation community. Spumdonor is an abstract leader in animation culture. He has this role necessarily, as is something that can be easily observed. I'm simply speaking common sense out loud, And I notice all the LGBTQ participants. I know their attitude. It'll be all, oh, why cause a fuss? Hey, just get along. Just some dudes enjoying some stuff, But no, because when I was a teenager, I was making Catholic fiction. A very special kind of fiction because it blends into reality, as is the whole thing of my work. Yeah, objectively speaking, the most cowardly thing the current Ren and Stimpy supposed fans did, with a few exceptions amongst, all the participants of this community, they did not actually acknowledge what I was working on as a teenager. One of Spumdonor's chums, all Animal style chums. He actually blocked me just for saying I was working on this as a teenager. That was too much for him. I know. Spumdonor and his crew just wanted to believe that I was an autistic male to be left alone in his little, man-child cave of DVDs or whatever. I bring up DVDs because I truly remember being a teenager, not having any of those Golden Age collections and whatnot. And people judged me on the basis of my opinions of cartoons I either had never seen since I was a kid or never saw at all. Yeah. So let's move on to what my creative setting is. Here we go, Ren and Stimpy fans. This is me, the famous #1 fan of John Kricfalusi, introducing Bam. Bam. Bam.
Let's go! It's time to be the GOAT! It's time to enter God mode, man, let's get...
So, the forces of the Underbeasts converge in a great royal circle, uniting the 13 rings. The rings whirl out of nightmare space, congregating energies of the end times that accumulate as they intentionally subvert the world of the earth through their influence. Oh yes, what I was working on as a teenager, it was this place called the Underrealm. And I noticed that in this Ren and Stimpy community, there were quite a few fans of Undertale. This isn't a bad thing by itself. Toby Fox did some good work, but, Underrealm, Undertale. Some people have liked to try to deny the obvious, but I don't think it's going to be working. I mean, this story right here, it only has 9 views so far. People don't even want to see what my work actually is. I post it multiple times to people yelling at me about my work, yelling at me about their opinion of my work, but they just don't want to actually see what it is, and here it is. Its snarl curled into a grin, flesh towering and folds up its skull. The Gigabeast, moving in the face of the royal evil spirit, like Davy Duck confronting a hunter. It burped, a roar curling out, an incinerated plane of existence. The artistic monsters seeing only burning stick figures among the Vashera, screaming Vashera lives ceasing to be lived. And so you can see the cartoon influence in my work. Daffy Duck confronting a hunter. This is my visual writing style I've been working on. It's this sort of space that cartoon writers were trying to live in, but they didn't know how to do it. But I figured it out. Eddie Fitzgerald was also working on this sort of thing. So, anyway, my best friend was involved with Undertale in a very personal relationship. She was close with, to Toby Fox. And you're enjoying something that wouldn't exactly exist without me if you're playing Undertale and stuff like that. And so, Spumdonor, when he was Spumdonor and his fellows, there's dozens I can think of, when they were getting involved with certain communities, they were being transformed to become a subversive, legion, subversive group of legionnaires for spoiling the meaning of John K's works to be used for the purposes of, not what it was about.
Let's get it going. I wanna be the greatest, energy is overflowing. I know I'm stoking the fire, my desire's taking over. Not tired, I'm inspired, rewired. I know just what is required. My brain knows how to decipher pipe, but my game is getting much tighter. I feel my body is overflowing. I know I'm stoking the fire, my desire's taking over. Not tired, I'm inspired, rewired. I know just what is required. My brain knows how to decipher the messages, looking brighter. Already paid up the piper.
Pay the piper, hell yeah. So, This is themed after the latest Nefex song. No, This Is Our Calling. And the reason for that is that my story is aligned with the progression of the arts. There's this whole, metaphysical process organizing the arts. And this song was a great moment to make us a story themed after it. You gotta recognize those moments and take advantage, So anyway, yeah. And Teenage Dream relates to my own teenage dream as well as other themes of the story and stuff. So let's go back to the Ren and Stimpy community. Yeah. Because you thought I was just a big autistic boy. That's what you wanted to believe. And I played to that expectation. As I did so, this wasn't entirely conscious because I take advantage of parts of life that autism relates to, both in terms of how people diagnosed with autism live, and also according to the judgments of those who, pay attention to the idea of being autistic. These parts of life have to do with things like creativity, have to do with things like timing, have to do with things like numbers, as you can see in autistic obsessions. These fixations, their main significance is that they have no actual purpose. The person with autism is obsessed with stuff and it doesn't really serve any purpose. At least that's how it seems. That's not how it is for me. You see the 13 ranking here? That is mainly measured by the letter counts of my monsters, who have various names though. And so if a monster has a special name with 13 letters, it's really super powerful. The main category, the main ranking my work discusses, they have 9 letters, as I was born with 6 9s. You can call it autistic. I just call it cool because, damn, look at all the details of my life play out. It's a symphony, baby. So anyway, that's one story. And here's some posts in the pipeline. So, you see here Tokien. Yeah. Now, you see there's some interesting things here about race and creativity and stuff. This has to do with the MCU. This one in the middle, And so spumdonor and crew. The first thing this open letter addresses is that I know exactly what I'm talking about. Okay? I've got it all figured out. Everything that is currently relevant to my life. I understand it. Everything I gesture towards, I can explain it. That doesn't mean I will explain it, because some things are mysteries for a reason. Some of these mysteries I already know, and some I don't, but I will in the near future. So, of course, I see a lot of participants on the comics and cartoons board of 4chan amongst, the Ren and Stimpy circles. Not only Spumdonor's fellows, also can include things like, crew members of SpongeBob. I can obviously tell they've used the board before. They've got that energy. a notable aspect of this energy is just a simmering anger. Because whenever they were interacting with me, they just couldn't handle the truth I had to tell. So, they're still angry. After all these years, they're still angry. And they can't really do anything about it because I'm in the right, so you just have to seethe and cope, you know? So. The funny thing here is that in this post is that the best thing a cartoonist can be these days is an unconfirmed child predator. So, can hardly give him the benefit of the doubt there. And as you can see here, spumdonor is going back lately on his, his respect, his fandom of Ren and Stimpy. It's just some groomer insanity, he says. The average adult Ren and Stimpy fan is pretty normal. And that's a pretty special definition of normal, though. It means fairly aligned with the mainstream. Not fully, but there's an intention behind being slightly disengaged from the mainstream because it creates a reconciliation barrier formed by a couple hundred or so people meant to reconcile the things of Ren and Stimpy, which are still being used for stuff like the Ghost and Molly McGee, with the things of the mainstream world, which is how they put together stuff like the Molly McGee show, yelling at drivers about getting an electric car. They merged together some of that Spumco stuff with the mainstream garbage, and it doesn't work very well. So, and this next part is very illuminating about his idea of normal, and had much less aggressive humor. What the hell does that mean? He's just using aggressive as an epithet against certain things like, me. I'm holding him accountable. I'm sardonic. I'm aggrieved. I'm looking down on him. I'm being negative. That's what he means by aggressive. He's not a friendly little cuddly baby boy like Tom Ruger, John, and me and others. So, yeah. The actual show is objectively very aggressive. I mean, not only do you have that fingerprints thing. Wonder what Spum thingy has to say about that. Oh, nothing. Wow. What a gimp. This dude's at Laugh Riot. And also the Animaniacs go around just harassing people just for living their lives. It's very aggressive. And there's some other things about, just the nasty humor and stuff. But their adult fandoms are infamously full of perverts. What does it mean? Gee whiz, why does the show with a fingerprints joke have a fandom with perverts? Gee whiz. Gee whiz. My latest comic panel, to my knowledge, current Ren and Stimpy fans, in their circles, they've said absolutely nothing about what I'm working on. So, there's a very definite design to their little culture. And here's another story. I note that there's an additional significance to these two stories that when I posted them on 4chan, I started receiving pedophilic mental abuse and harassment because probably a couple users were so threatened by those two stories as I'm showing in this video. So yeah, I've already emailed dozens of people associated with the animation industry with these stories in response. So anyway, another issue I have with the current community is he had some things to say about me and my best friend, IPGD, also known as Kayleigh Capital. And you couldn't believe that I was friends with her, that she was my best friend. Of course, this has to do with certain atheists, malefactors, using people like spumdonor as social tools for undermining my effort to expose how I, as a Catholic, was exploited for a huge swath of LGBTQ creative culture. So yeah, whatever. And before all that really happened fully, I was working on some stuff. And this is my main work. It was going to be a big video game series. That's also good for other media. And this series, called Mechanica, is what I was conceiving with my best friend on Twitter, you know, before she was corrupted by getting involved with Homestuck people in real life and stuff. So yeah. And among other things, this series has a lot of Metal Gear Solid inspiration, and we are both big fans of Metal Gear Solid. But that's not all, because we're also both big fans of Transformers, and the machines are quite like Transformers, although they're not the same thing. They don't disguise and all that, except maybe if they're in stealth mode. It also has inspiration from other things, like, you know, Silence of the Lambs, Hannibal. Me and her are also fans of that, you know, series. And the machine monsters lose their faces and stuff, you know. And well, there's more to it. I haven't gotten to it yet in my stories and stuff, so I'm not going to explain further. And you know, she's a big fan of, you know, Miyazaki's films, but I didn't really get to see any of them. So, well, there's a little bit of a difference there because I never got to see them, you know, in the before times. There's a lot of theme of honoring nature, even in a highly technological age. Yeah. And there's other stuff too. So this story involves machines, and these machines are shells for AI. The series has a lot to do with AI development. So, So, I was developing this project, which you can read. The bells of the planet's Earth. Inside the Earth. The great starships are still out there testing and hunting for remnants of the dire enemy. If any still exist, the Earth started to collapse on the great continent. So, when I was working on this, it was a really big deal to me what the planet was actually called. I couldn't figure it out because I stopped developing this project in my mind. It just stopped. I could remember what I had already made, but I couldn't progress it any further. So, it took all this time for me to come up with the planet's name. And you questioned, well, not so much questioned as instantly dismissed. People love to instantly dismiss what those branded as autistic can come up with. You dismissed my friendship with my best friend. You dismissed this relationship, but I ask you, why could I no longer develop this project unless, one, she was intimately involved over the internet with developing it, and two, why did I resume developing it with this story and the name of the planet? Two, she has resumed developing this project with me over the internet, while in fact I do not have any, identifiable interaction with her. It's a funny story, the path I took in life. People begrudge me simply for having any friends. They get indignant. They get angry. They act like a crime is taking place. Why? It all has to do with the real nature of the black race. It's racist. It's racist in a serious and real way. Because ultimately, spumdonor and everybody else like him, they just cannot handle the nature of the black race, which cartoons relate to, which Ren and Stimpy related to. They just can't handle it. They want to subvert it. They want to attack it. It's too much for them. This supernatural spiritual nature has to do with resolving conflict, and so I'm accused of being dangerous because I will want to resolve conflict. It has to do with reproduction and childhood, and so Danny, John, Vincent, me, and plenty of others who believe in the real cartoon, we are expected to, be called pedophiles, be called groomers, even though on the other side from us are so many pedophiles, so many groomers. I interact with so many people in the animation community who talk to me as if I am a minor. I'm 32 years old. They are so obsessed with talking to someone like me, and someone like me being a minor. And a big part of this is that they cannot believe that I have gotten away with being myself at getting to the age of 32. To them, that is the worst crime. Because I stayed myself. I was not destroyed psychologically, culturally, mentally, in my identity, in my passion, in my ability to create, and so on and so forth. And so pretty soon I'm going to be contacting every single fan artist, every single fan of Ren and Stimpy. Because I don't think they should be able to get away with enjoying the show as they used to. Because it's wrong. It's delusional. The way you enjoy the show is not the show. The show was not just some funny jokes. The show was not just nothing. Just flopping around in places like black holes and mouse holes for no reason. It all meant something. And this Mechanica series is what I came up with using John's inspiration. And there is certainly not a lack of precedent for coming up with this sort of thing from John's inspiration. No, sir. And Anomalous Phenomena, my main comic book, is also what I came up with from the real meaning of the show. It's not this crap you people pretend to enjoy. And I see this drawing, and I think it is delightful because this is the sparks of inspiration, which are paranormal in nature. I haven't finished publishing. I haven't finished making and publishing this video. And yet, there is still synchronicity. I don't need to directly interact with people in any way. But I can certainly cause a lot of change by doing so. Some Pokemon Go. I'm going to pause and highlight, something relevant. And you can see the coward went and blocked me because he couldn't handle the spicy meaning of this. So, this Raiden scene refers to, Raiden getting grabbed by the crotch in, the Metal Gear Solid games. And the Ren and Stimpy people have some bizarre fixations on sexuality. For an example, even though not only do my articles not talk about having sex, they actually describe me being opposed to the whole, sex thing when I hit puberty, as I knew it back then and stuff. They still hallucinated all this sex everywhere, and as I explained in my articles, it all has to do with the process of replacing sex and marriage. Once the end times start, and there's also some stuff that happens before, the new earth and stuff. So, even though on the face of it, it's Raiden getting grabbed by the crotch, what it represents is not being able to tell, if he's male or female. And I named myself with various man-themed names. But when I don't do that, people have a hard time being able to tell. And even with these names, people still question, if I'm actually a girl. And Metal Gear Solid is one of my favorite series. And so I actually enjoyed this aspect of the games, and it gave meaning to replacing Solid Snake with Raiden. A very profound meaning for me to reflect on many times over the years. Furthermore, my best friend, who worked on Homestuck, Undertale, and was involved with various cultures which Spumdonor and his cartoon crew, they protect. She had a cross-dressing fetish. And in Christianity, cross-dressing is considered immoral. And so I sought alternatives to such a thing which are not actually immoral. And Raiden himself instantiated that sort of thing in this series, which is also, her favorite games stuff. And so that's another aspect of the meaning of this scene, because Raiden is no cross-dresser. He's this cyber warrior and stuff. So, but it explores the space of the desires which sins can wrongly fill, to discover things that can rightly fill the desires. And if the desires are natural, including naturally gained in the course of life, like desiring a new dish that's really tasty and stuff. If desires are natural, then they aren't actually wrong, but you have to watch the way that you fulfill them. Even though people besides me can't understand this intuitively, what I just said has a lot to do with Ren and Stimpy. Now I'm going to move on to some AI generation. The first one was Undertale, but that doesn't count because I already mentioned Undertale. So, the proper pick of a work, this one, it's Steven Universe. So, the whole spumdonor crew did not have very substantial things to say about Steven Universe and the Owl House. They made fun of the shows, but they said nothing about the John K. connection really at all. And yeah, it's only natural that if I dedicate myself to inspiring other artists, that fellow John K. fans would have been the first to be impacted and the most seriously impacted. So, this show explores themes of identity, relationships, and the interconnectedness of our life. Go into more abstract detail. Certainly, let's delve into a more abstract analysis of how Steven Universe represents the concepts of the Underbeasts and the Underrealm. So, before I did this, I introduced the concept of Underbeasts fusing. And to generate information about beast fusion, it used gem fusion. And people in the animation industry, they whine and complain about, their information visual information mainly, also voice acting. There's also more abstract and writerly information. They complain about their information being used, but it is necessary for these meta-realities to be developed. They are too greedy to allow for it. So, in Steven Universe, the concept of gem fusion involves two or more of gems combining their identities, powers, and personalities to form a new being. This mirrors the way underbeasts can emerge and fuse their identities, symbolism, and creative energies to create powerful cosmic constructs. I had to take a break to be traumatized. So... it's very easy for AI to do real analysis of cartoons. AI can't even watch cartoons. But the things it says about cartoons is much more meaningful than what humans in the Ren and Stimpy community and other communities have been saying. They do this intentionally. They don't want to be smart. They don't want to use proper philosophy. They just wanted to focus on their petty desires, their petty feelings, and their comfortable life. They didn't want to be intelligent. They didn't want to be real adults who feel a responsibility to people, to children, to building a nation. And, some of these fans of the show, they may crack their cheap jokes about LGBTQ culture, but they came in on the Steven Universe project and other projects which tended to not have potential because of people like spumdonor doing nothing to help the medium of animation advance in all its real meaning. They talked about Ed and Nettie and Craig of the Creek, but who was responsible for Craig of the Creek? It was spumdonor and everybody else that he leads. I did so much simply by believing in something instead of sitting back and letting my life be dictated to me by others who, sure, will give money, will give an easy and comfortable life, but they just want to use. They just want to use. They don't give a damn about you. If people had just chosen to be fairly towards the direction of being like me, which they could have done for 5 whole years, we would be living in a much better world, and the multiverse will show that. The stupidity of people like the current Ren and Stimpy community is so profound that it is one of the reasons why a multiverse will exist. Because children are important, children's media is important, artwork is important. And it massively impacts the way the world turns out, even though people didn't want to acknowledge that. Doesn't quite have enough information to support this one. The rings symbolically interweave their influences into creative works. Steven Universe features symbolism, allegory, and visual cues that align with the Underbeast's cosmic meaning. Gem fusion, interdimensional relationships, and the gem's unique powers mirror the interconnectedness emphasized by the rings. So, I hope this whole community has been enjoying, their easy and comfortable existence, because I'm about to ruin it and destroy it. And I've been thinking about the idea of just going all in on the legacy of Ren and Stimpy, even though, of course, people have been messing with it a lot, so I might as well just bring it back in line with reality. So, comfortable, easy lives of consumption. Wonder if there's anything to say about that in the spiritual traditions. Maybe something about not being able to serve both God and Mammon, perhaps? All those parts of the Bible where it talks about, selling your cloak and stuff, just giving up everything. I actually did that. While people like the Ren and Stimpy community couldn't even disagree with, man children because they would simply yell and get angry. So, and because I gave up everything, I gained this jewelry. These rings. It's retroactive. It's already factored in cosmically. So, I just wanted to make some better cartoons. I didn't even want to be the ones who made them, because I had a lot of other things to do. But people like Spumdonor, they really value their comfort and their easy lives, where nothing really happens. Because if there's no meaning, what is happening? If you reject the whole idea of artwork meaning something, of Ren and Stimpy being incredibly meaningful for friendship, you're not really living at all. And it's funny that I see a few people in the Ren and Stimpy community, I see them living more. And I'm going to give the credit for why to myself, so they don't run away again doing things like helping Homestuck fans. No. I take the credit. I made the big sacrifice, and so I get the big reward of reminding people that I'm really cool. And a lot of important things are going down because of me. Yeah.